Most people are not addicted to their phones. They're addicted to never looking mentally unoccupied. You can see it everywhere now. Someone unlocks their phone at a red light, checks absolutely nothing, locks it again, then repeats the exact same motion 30 seconds later. And the disturbing part is, this behavior usually has less to do with entertainment than fear. Fear of stillness, fear of visibility, and finally, hearing an uninterrupted thought. Picture a crowded waiting room. A muted television is mounted in the corner. The air conditioner hums softly. 3 people are scrolling through their screens without expression. One person switches back and forth between the exact same 2 apps repeatedly. Another taps their screen before the elevator doors even close. You reach for your phone too, then stop halfway. Suddenly, your hands feel exposed. Like doing nothing in public requires an explanation now. You look around for a second. Not anxious exactly, just aware that everyone seems busy except you. So your brain offers the reflex automatically. Check something. Open something. Move. Anything but visible stillness. But this video is not really about phones. It's about what happens when a person loses the ability to sit uninterrupted long enough to hear their own mind fully form a thought. And more importantly, why some people never completely lost that ability in the first place. If you've ever felt strangely calmer in silence than in stimulation, stay with this. You may recognize more of yourself here than expected, because the habit usually starts long before you consciously notice it. Not with addiction, with performance. You've probably opened your phone without wanting anything. Not information, not connection, just movement. You stand in a crowded waiting room, step into an elevator, or wait at a pedestrian crosswalk. Before your awareness even catches up, your fingers have already unlocked the screen. Sometimes you close Instagram, lock your phone, and immediately reopen the exact same app 30 seconds later. You stare at the repeating images scrolling by and suddenly think, I don't even know what I'm looking for. The mind is losing its tolerance for unstimulated existence. Empty screen, still scrolling. The brain learned that visible stillness feels socially unsafe when others are watching. Constant scrolling becomes the perfect camouflage, making you look occupied. Sometimes your hands reach for stimulation before your mind forms a thought. But the strange part isn't the phone itself. It's why silence suddenly feels exposed. The uncomfortable feeling you experience in moments of stillness isn't boredom. It's the anxiety of being seen without a role to perform. You sit alone at a corner table in a quiet cafe, staring out the glass window. The moment you notice a stranger glance over from across the room, your posture immediately stiffens. To shake off the sudden warmth of embarrassment flushing through your chest, you quickly reach for your ceramic cup just to take a meaningless sip. Your mind instantly races with a single thought: I should probably look busy. In these moments, you completely lose the ability to experience rest naturally. Even relaxation becomes a performance, a calculated act to appear occupied. Silence started feeling public. Your nervous system interprets visible stillness as a form of social vulnerability. Instead of processing the quiet environment around you, your brain goes into overdrive, managing how other people perceive your physical body. You weren't escaping boredom. You were escaping visibility. And this usually started much earlier than you think. You may have been completely comfortable. Other people weren't. Think back to long car rides during your childhood. You were a quiet child, just staring out the window instead of asking for entertainment. But the adults looked at you and asked, "Are you okay?" Or, "Why don't you go play?" Children adapt quickly to social feedback. You learn that your quietness triggered concern. You started asking yourself, maybe something's wrong with me. Instead of inhabiting your natural stillness, you began performing stimulation just to keep others at ease. The quiet became something you hid. You forced yourself to look entertained long before you actually wanted entertainment. And after enough years, the performance became automatic. You're not always distracted by something external. Sometimes your own brain interrupts itself automatically. You watch half a short video while scrolling down to check your messages. You open a new browser tab before finishing a single paragraph. Music plays in the background while your fingers swipe through a feed and text someone simultaneously. Your brain has been conditioned to live in these micro-interruptions. Deep cognitive drift never fully forms. Your thoughts become fragmented long before they ever reach depth. And you find yourself wondering, why can't I focus like I used to? No notification. Still checked. Some people haven't heard a full, uninterrupted thought in years. But interruption isn't the deepest problem. Avoidance is. The second the noise disappears, something uncomfortable enters. Not from outside, from you. Think about the moment your room finally turns quiet at night. The TV is off. Your phone battery is dead. Instantly, your mind fills with unfinished thoughts, unresolved anxieties, and emotions you put on hold all day long. Constant distraction acts as a barrier, suppressing your internal processing before those raw emotions can fully surface. By constantly escaping into a screen, you lose contact with what you actually think and feel. And in the dark, you are left with a sudden realization. I didn't realize how much I was avoiding. That's why silence feels loud. You don't always reach for stimulation because you want something. Sometimes you reach for it because you don't. And the brain changes when uninterrupted space finally returns. Your mind does not stop in silence. It finally has room to continue. Imagine walking down the street without headphones, or simply lying in bed, staring at the ceiling before sleep. Suddenly, a random connection forms between entirely unrelated memories. This happens because your brain activates its default mode network, a system that only turns on during internally directed attention. Without these quiet moments, your ability to form deep insights begins to weaken. And you realize a simple truth. That's where my best ideas usually appear. The thought finished itself. Creativity rarely arrives while your attention is being pulled every 6 seconds. But modern life treats this mental state like a problem to solve. People get uncomfortable when you stop performing engagement. Even briefly, you leave parties early or choose to eat lunch alone at a small table. You walk without music, and you don't reply immediately to a text message. When others notice this, someone might raise an eyebrow or give you a worried glance. Modern culture easily mistakes a reduced need for stimulation for some kind of dysfunction. As a result, people feel constant pressure to look accessible and active at all times. Eventually, you get exhausted and think, I'm tired of acting more stimulated than I actually am. Presence became performance. You kept thinking you needed more stimulation when you actually needed less interruption. And once you understand that, your choices start changing quietly. What looked empty from the outside was never empty. It was uninterrupted. Think back to that crowded waiting room from the beginning. Everyone around you is still looking down, endlessly scrolling through their screens. But this time, you just sit there, free from that urgent restlessness. Your brain no longer panics when faced with an unstimulated space. Of course, you might appear distant to people who constantly need external input to fill the silence. But inside, you simply realize, I don't need noise to feel occupied anymore. The noise stopped. Your mind didn't. You were never bad at connection. You were just exhausted by unnecessary input. If you have ever felt this way, Share your thoughts in the comments below. Has your silence ever made someone else uncomfortable? Maybe your problem was never that you needed too much time alone. Maybe you just noticed earlier than most people how exhausting constant input actually feels. Some people lose themselves in silence. You lose yourself in noise. You were probably the person who could sit through the entire car ride just watching the road move past the window. The one who left the party tired instead of fulfilled. The one who sometimes opened a screen for company, then closed it 2 minutes later because the noise felt heavier than the silence. Not disconnected, just overstimulated differently. The world trained people to fear empty moments. You learned how to think inside them. I'm curious what your version of this looked like. Maybe it was a walk without headphones. Maybe it was staring out a train window longer than everyone else. Maybe it was realizing how fast your hand reaches for stimulation the second life becomes quiet. Leave your experience in the comments, not the polished version, the real one. If these videos help you notice parts of yourself you usually override, you can stay here for the next one. There's more underneath these behaviors than most people realize. One day you notice the room is finally quiet again, and for the first time in a long time, you don't rush to fill it.